Hey, I'm here today to show you my beautiful brown 1979 Volvo 245 station wagon. I love this thing and I don't really want to sell it, but I find myself in a position where I'm needing to raise money for other projects and it's time to find this a new home. I've had this wagon for a couple years now, and what I really like about it is it has documented history that it was owned by the same family from 1979 until about 2014. So it seems like they kept it in really good shape. They don't have all the records with it, but there's enough to tell a story. And at first I wasn't sold on the brown color. I thought, what uglier color could there be? But it's really grown on me so much, especially ever since I polished it and made it shiny. But here in the Northwest, it's so at home in the forest and the trees, and it's just so funky in 70s. That being said, it's definitely not perfect. It has plenty of flaws all over it. It's a used, almost 40-year-old car. But that's half the fun, and I think if you're a Volvo enthusiast and a tinkerer, this is a great car. So I'm going to try to do a pretty thorough walk around here so you get a really good idea of what you're getting. We're going to start with the exterior, of course, and the body and paint. So it's old tired paint. It shines up really nicely, and I love the brown, but let me show you some of the flaws. The hood is pretty much covered in these little blisters everywhere. Paint's getting a little bit thin in spots, and on the roof especially, you can see there's some big areas where it has faded through to primer, which is unfortunate. Around these roof rack mounts, there is a little bit of bubbling. Not really anything to get excited about, but I want you to be aware of it. And then back here, again, some fading. The roof is the only part that's faded through though, luckily. And I'm not sure if it's 100% original paint. I thought it was when I first got it, but there are some inconsistencies that make me wonder. Because when you look up here, it's pretty nice and glossy, but then this layer down below has some, I don't even know what you call it, those really fine, it's kind of scuff scratch marks. And then coming up to this door, you can see some flaking or whatever you would call that. And the driver's door here kind of has more of that fine weirdness going on. But then the fender is shinier. And the upper surfaces here are all pretty nice. I did get new decals for the emblems here. The original aluminum inserts were really faded. All the trim is really nice. All the stainless, it's pretty much perfect. All the glass is good. It's really nice to see such nice trim. Some of the aluminum trim, of course, is a little bit faded. The plastic light lenses are quite nice. Not 100% perfect. There's some little cracks, but overall very nice. Mud flaps are really nice, just a little dusty. These are brand new tires. I just put them on a couple weeks ago. They probably have less than 1,000 miles on them. The hubcaps are actually off of a 1980. I don't know how much of a stickler you are for originality, but 79 would have come with a little bit smaller hubcaps with the pebble grain center caps, but I managed to get a hold of these in nice shape and thought they looked good. And I freshened up the black paint on the wheels. They really should be silver, but I do like the purposeful look you get with the black paint. Also, as far as the stance, it's on IPD lowering springs all around, and I really like the look. And not only does it look good, but the car handles surprisingly better than you would think for an old 1970s station wagon. It can corner pretty well. Coming around the front, these lenses are in really nice shape, as is the trim. I redid the black paint inside these headlight bezels. They were just kind of faded. Also redid the black paint inside the grille. This emblem isn't too bad, but shows a little age, as does that one. Also fresh paint over here. Nice lenses. The bumpers are all in good shape. I haven't really seen any evidence of accidents or anything. Rubber's all good. The only thing on the bumpers I'll point out is there's a little bit of pitting, I guess, at this back edge. And then there's some old parking sticker of some kind there. And what's cool here is we have an original dealer plate from Gladstone, Oregon. Pretty sure this car's been in Oregon its whole life. So we look down this side. The other thing worth pointing out is there's definitely some little dings here and there. There's no major damage or dents, but there are small dings here and there. Let's see if I can pick any of them up. Yeah, there's one. I think there's another one up here somewhere. Yeah, right there. Another one there. So you get the idea. It's not completely riddled in dents, but there's several of them. Right there. This guy, there's a little broken spot there. I think those are available. Now what's interesting here is we have the same type of thing going on with the paint, where the upper half looks really nice, but then down here it's all crackly. But we do have what looks like the original unleaded gasoline only decal there. So I'm not sure if they would have gone to the trouble of replacing that decal if it was repainted there, but kind of a mystery. But back bumpers in similar shape, nice rubber, but a little bit of pitting on the bumper itself. But good emblems back here. Nice paint on the tailgate. I redid the wiring in the hinges, so everything back here works, all the lights and the rear wiper and everything. Alright, I moved into the shade so we have a little more even lighting. And what else was I going to point out? There is a little damage to the rubber bumper here. That's probably the worst spot right there. All this weather stripping here, these belt line pieces, window scrapers, are all brand new. I did these a couple months ago. Old ones were pretty cracked. But same story on the trim, it's very nice, especially the stainless. Aluminum's a little bit less bright. The mirrors are pretty good, but this one shows some speckling. But I love these early chrome mirrors. That's one of the things I love about these early cars as a whole. They just have so much more style in the trim. Speaking of, one of the common things that I see people do on these old ones is they want to replace the windshield, and so the easy route is to get the 90s newer one that is a flush mount with the rubber built in. But to me that kind of takes away the whole vintage look of these early cars. So it is possible to get the old style windshields and the trim you can get brand new. And so if you ever needed to replace this windshield, I would urge you to go that route and keep that piece of original bling. I really like it. Also, almost forgot to mention, there is this little chip in the windshield. For reference, there's my finger. Here's the other decal on this side. Kind of like to freshen up those details. This mirror, pretty nice, but has a couple little dents in it. Gotta say, even despite all the flaws and imperfections all over the place, I just love the look of this old thing. So funky and brown and shiny. Love the wheels and tires and the stance with those lowering springs. It's just cool. Maybe I'm a dork, but I love this thing. Why don't we take a look inside? Alright, got her all opened up. Let's look at the interior. So the first thing you're gonna notice is, Driver's seat leather is torn up pretty bad. These seats, I thought they were original to the car at first, not being a total Volvo expert, but someone else pointed out to me that they're actually out of a later, either a turbo model or a GL. That's the only ones you got this leather seating in. Rear seat's very nice as usual, doesn't get as much use. I haven't even really done anything to these, haven't tried to dress them or anything. If I had the budget, I would absolutely reupholster these in the same style, probably in vinyl, just because, well, A, it's a little cheaper, and B, it seems to hold up better over time. One of the nice things I can point out is I redid all these door panels. I used a quality vinyl and plastic paint, so it will hold up. And originally this had sort of two-tone, where the panels were kind of a pale tan color and the handles and such were black. That would have been correct for 79, but I like the look better of all matching. And amazingly, it has intact door pockets. I actually got these out of another car, but these I did not paint, so it shows how well the tan paint that I used actually matches. We still have the factory decals. There's an oil change decal, I think, on top. Decent shape, a little worn. And there's some little things I fixed that you usually take for granted, like the dome lights. They weren't working at all when I got the car, so I replaced the door switches and the lights themselves with good used stuff. Dash is pretty nice, but it does have a couple little cracks on either side of the gauge pod. Pretty common. There's the other side. But what's cool in here is everything works. Clock works. It's got a tachometer in it, which is nice. I always like that with the stick shift. And of course it's a 4-speed with overdrive, M46. And this is a, I would say, period correct AM/FM radio. It's not the original one from the car. Unfortunately, that one was broken. It was a cassette tape deck, but it was physically and electronically broken. This is pretty cool. These floor mats are, again, not from this car. I actually found them in another car, and they are in really good shape. Early floor mats that you just don't see anymore. And they're actually held to the floor with these two clips. And there's built-in receptacles in the floor in these early cars for these specific floor mats. So really cool to see that. Even the driver's side is in pretty good shape, but it does have a little hole right there where your heel goes. And aside from that, quite nice. The clips there as well. And the carpet underneath isn't really hiding anything. It's, you know, it's old, but it's in pretty good shape. Got those mats back here as well. Pretty cool to have a full set of these original mats in good shape. Same thing over here with the panels. I really like how they came out. The speakers are actually original Volvo speakers, and they actually sound pretty good, but I'll show you in a minute here. The radio works pretty well, and it's so cool. You just feel like you're back in the day. I like to listen to the AM radio when I'm driving this thing around. Inside the glove box, you have some documents and such. I'll show you that stuff in a little bit. It's also pretty cool to see this center console e-brake assembly in one piece. Those are often cracked. This one's pretty perfect. So I just want to demonstrate a couple things working. I'll turn the key on. I love this radio. All right.
Your dad on his day. Stop into your landmark nursery in Salem. Like us on Facebook or visit us at 13.
All right. Oh yeah. So that's AM. I've noticed FM is a lot weaker. I have a hard time getting a good signal on FM, but maybe if I extend out my antenna. Yeah, FM's a little weak. It works, but it doesn't seem to get as strong of a signal as AM. Luckily for me, I have some decent AM stations. There's like an oldie station, and I actually like that kind of music, so. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I'm ready to go cruising now. Okay, so we can see, obviously all the lights work here. Turn signals, lights, and that's another decal I replaced. It was very faded there. So we turn the lights on, high beams. Can't really see right now, but all the gauge lights work at night. Hey, it's dark. Just wanted to cut away for a second and show the gauges working since I still have the camera with me at night. These switches have a nice solid feel. So the rear defrost, unfortunately, doesn't work. I haven't really needed it, but I think the glass itself, the metal strips in it, have just corroded a bit. So unfortunately that's not working. The wipers do kind of a funny thing, and this is a wiper switch out of a newer wagon. I was trying to diagnose this issue. So they work fine, but when you go to turn it off and it's in the middle of a stroke, they just stay there. So one of those little things that I haven't really figured out yet. Hopefully the next owner is a good tinkerer, but you just kind of let it get to the bottom and switch it off. The rear tailgate wiper works. Let's see if we can see in the rear view. On intermittent mode it actually works, which is pretty cool. Wait for it. Yeah. Then we can switch it into full gear. And that works, so that's pretty cool. Squirter back there, let me see. So it squirts and it turns on the wiper. Just pretty neat to have all stuff like that working still. And then the front. There we go. It sprays, but I'm not getting wipers on. So I have to do that manually. The blower fan, here's the thing, it does actually work, but it makes so much noise that I usually just leave the fuse out and don't worry about it. But let me show you, I just put the fuse back in. You hear that? It's on 0 and it's still grumbling. I mean, it's nice that it actually works, but it makes so much noise, it makes me not want to use it. So let's kill that. Take the fuse back out real quick. So also, unsurprisingly, the odometer doesn't work anymore. It finally quit at 251,000. So, not sure of actual mileage, but I think it hasn't been driven that much since it stopped. So it's probably still under 300 would be my guess. But you know these red block Volvos, they just keep going forever. Also, only one of the 2 horn tones works, but I actually like it. It's kind of a cute beep. I like it. But yeah, this has the electric overdrive. So I'll show you that working when we take a test drive. Alright, let's come back here to the cargo area. I want to show you something I'm kind of proud of. So I redid this. The old original carpet was very worn. It was worn all the way through, pretty tattered. So I got some vinyl and some padding, and I actually recovered this whole cargo area. The only downside is it's too nice now to haul stuff, so I always put a tarp down if I'm actually going to haul stuff in here. But let's see what's in the little trunk. So all this stuff comes with the car. There's a nice old tattered manual, a couple spare parts. These are plugs for the roof rack if you want to take it off. Never used. There's a new intake manifold gasket that I didn't need. There's the original dome light housings. They're different from the new ones that I put in because they're metal, so I just kept them in case the next owner wants them. This is the original windshield wiper switch. It's a little different from the newer ones. The letters are actually embossed, and I think the symbols are a little bit different. So maybe it could be repaired. I think the contacts inside are just a little bit worn. These are brand new shifter bushings that I just never got a chance to put in. Shifter rattles a little bit, which we'll see on the test drive. There's a spare wiper relay. That was part of my trying to diagnose that problem. This is the original toolkit that came with the car. Alright, there's what's in the toolkit. They're a little bit crusty, but it's just cool to see all that original stuff. Alright, I took the stuff out for a second just so I can show you how pristine it is in here. Take the liner out, insulation. And yeah, it looks pretty factory fresh in here. Alright, took the side panel off so we can look down inside. There's our reservoir for the rear washer pump. And as we can see, this is a low spot that normally would be prone to rust, but it's just perfect in here. And we can look down below. You know, maybe a little dirty, but no rust. Alright, just opened up the spare tire cover so we can look in here. Don't know if that's actually the original spare tire or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Here's the jack. Get this stuff out. Alright, so the tire's out. Let's take a look down in here. Turn my light on. So here's where we see really the only significant rust on the car. There's a little hole there. If I hold my finger up to it, you can see the size. Aside from that, it's just dirty down here. That's really the only significant rust on the car. Everything else is rock solid. Also recently found this spot. This is looking at the rear window from the inside. And just for scale, here's my finger. So it's bubbling a little bit there. But this rear window, we may eventually want to replace it anyways because of the defrost not working. And they are available, as are the seals. Alright, I just folded down the back seat to show you just how cavernous a Volvo 240 wagon is. If you've never had one, it's one of the most practical cars ever made. That's probably why they're so popular still. But definitely a practical classic that you can haul stuff around in, as long as you put a tarp down and keep my nice upholstery nice and clean. I also want to point out most of the weather stripping on this car is still pretty good, pretty soft and pliable. Some of it does show some dryness from age, but I haven't had any water leakage problems. When we come back here, this might be one of the worst pieces on the tailgate. It's just kind of dried out and old, and it looks like it's shrunken a little bit right here. You can see it's kind of separated, but those are available, and I think all the weather strips are still available for these cars. It's one of the things I like is parts availability. It's still quite good, both here and in Sweden for some of those hard to find parts. Alright, I've got the hood up now. Let's talk about mechanicals. I haven't had to do that much really. I've cleaned it up a bit under the hood, as you can tell. It's really in pretty nice shape. We've got our original data plate here. I'll have a picture of that. All the decals are in pretty nice shape. Even under the hood, the vacuum hose routing decal. All the paint under the hood looks good. Brand new battery as of this year, just a couple months ago. It's actually for a later 240 because I replaced the tray with the later style plastic one and the hold down. You can see the cables are crossed from what they used to be, but it works fine. New rebuilt power steering pump. The pump works great, the steering is very easy. Brand new alternator also as of this year. Of course it went at the same time as the battery, so I did both. That has a lifetime warranty on it. I've done the PCV flame trap. I've done the injector O-rings. That brake booster is out of a newer 240. It's used, but it's good. The old one had a bit of a whooshy vacuum leak. I've done the in-tank fuel pump in the back. I did the upgraded high flow pump, and that's worked great. Also changed out the fuel filter. It's a Bosch filter that I did in the last couple months. That's a newer wiper motor out of a newer 240. So I last drove about an hour ago, so it's not really going to be a true cold start, but I can put my hand there and be fine. So it's been sitting for a little while. Let's fire it up. Door buzzer works. I'm gonna close the door so we don't have to hear that. All right. Fires right up. Runs nice and smooth. Out back, the exhaust is nice and mellow and quiet. Let's go for a test drive. So you're not going to be blown away by horsepower or anything, but it feels like a Volvo. It's smooth, clutch feels smooth, it shifts easily, and just cruises down the road. So as we get up to speed here, I'm in 4th gear, 65, I'm doing about 3,500 RPM, so I'll pop it into overdrive, and that drops it down to about 2,500. So that's a nice little feature. And now we get to test our braking. This being a Volvo, it has 4-wheel power disc brakes. And it stops on a dime. The ride is good, those springs are not overly harsh. Something else I should mention is that it seems to run warm. So when you get up to temperature, the temperature gauge is a little bit above normal. It doesn't ever get to the hot range or all the way up, but it does seem to run warm. And I haven't done anything with the cooling system. It doesn't lose coolant or anything, but it could probably use some attention. Oh yeah, and on a similar note to the heater fan being noisy and the car running warm, is that the heater control valve I think needs to be replaced, because even when you turn the slider all the way off for the heat, it seems like you still get some warm air drifting out of the vents, so I just keep all the vents closed. It's a fun old wagon to drive. It may not be fast, but it makes up for it in charisma. And it's just a cruising machine. All right, got her up in the air. Let's take a look underneath and point out a few things. First of all, here's the new drip pan that I put on. The old one was just cracked and ugly, so this was a pretty easy thing to change out. We can see the new springs in here, those blue IPD lowering springs. Aside from that, it seems like most everything under here is pretty original, untouched. Don't see any evidence of any front end damage. It looks all very straight. I haven't noticed any leaks at all. It does seem to burn a little bit of oil. I have to add some once in a while. Super solid floorboards, no rust in the floors whatsoever. The back section of the exhaust at some point was replaced by the original owners. It's still in good shape, sounds good, nice and quiet. No rust whatsoever there. On the other side, has that little hole in the spare tire well. We got the springs back here as well. And a lot of these rubber bushings all over the place could definitely use replacing. Sometimes the rear end will clunk when you start off from a standstill. And I think that's the trailing arm bushings, if that's the right term. These guys probably. So there's definitely still some tinkering that could be done to continue to improve the car, but the important thing is just rock solid. All right, let's take a look at some of the documentation that comes with the car. It's not 100% documented from beginning to end, but there's enough here that tells a story where I can tell that the original owners had this car from the beginning until about 2014, it looks like. There's some old registration and insurance information over here with their names on it going up to about 2014. And then the coolest thing, I think, is this auto record where they kept a log of their mileage, just like people did back in the day. And it starts from the beginning, 1979. I missed a page even. January 1979, 264 miles. And it just keeps going and going until they run out of paper. There's 84. Yeah, and then when they ran out of paper, they just kept going in the memo section. And then here, there's some lubrication records where they got oil changes. There you go, 86. Anyways, then towards the back, it picks up again in 1998. They must have gone on a road trip. But this book alone at least traces ownership from 1979 to 1998. That's pretty cool. Then of course we have all the original, the owner's manual, which is pretty cool to have. And yep, the original owner's name is in there, which I'll try to blank out. You got your warranties, maintenance records. This radio was with the car when I got it, but unfortunately it was broken, it was cracked, didn't work, but it's still cool to have the manual. And there's your consumer information packet, and this all came in this nice envelope. Another cool thing, AAA of Oregon. All this stuff was in this nice little package. Stuff's kind of cool to see. Look at these awesome, unused, shiny decals. So they didn't keep all of their service records. A lot of these are from about the late 80s, early 90s up until mid 2000s. A lot of it's stuff like tires and battery, exhaust. A couple of these are exhaust service in 89, 90. But they didn't keep all the early stuff, which I'm not surprised. It's just a family car for them, I presume. And some of that is my stuff. I'm also not great at keeping all my receipts, so a lot of it's minor, but We do have the warranty information for the tires, as well as the lifetime warranty on the alternator and the battery receipt. Well, I think that about sums it up. Thanks for watching my Volvo video. I know it's probably a little bit more in depth than what's really necessary for an old Volvo station wagon, but I really like this car, and I hope the next person has the same enthusiasm for it that I have. And it's the kind of wagon that you can tinker with as you drive it and make little improvements as you go. And I think that's half the fun of these things. So that being said, I'll give myself a little plug too. I usually do this kind of thing for other people's cars, these videos and photo packages. So if you liked what you saw here, and you have a car for sale, let me know. But aside from that, I'll just say thanks again for watching and good luck.